Hello and welcome to the Law According to podcast. I'm Mike Minnis of 2M Legal, and today my guest is Rosie Beavan of Batt Broadbent Solicitors. Rosie shares her journey into law, starting from an early interest sparked by a family conversation at the age of 14. She reflects on how work experience placement at Magistrates Court ignited her passion for helping others through law. And Rosie also talks about overcoming the challenges of breaking into the legal field without connections, the importance of mentorship, and what led her to choose family law as her career path. This is the Law According to Rosie Beavan. Hello and welcome to the Law According to. My name is Mike Minnis of 2M Legal, and today I'm joined by Rosie Beavan, who is a solicitor and head of family at Batt Broadbent, and also a lecturer in family law at Bournemouth University. Rosie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's great to be here.
You're very, very welcome. Rosie, this is all about your career story. So tell me, how did law start for you? How did your career in law start?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was discussing this with my husband last night and sort of thinking back over it. And I think growing up sort of as a child, I always wanted to be a teacher. So I wanted to, be able to guide people and, that lifelong learning, I think, and view of things. So it wasn't until I was about 14 that law was actually sort of on the card. I can vividly remember being sat in my grandparents' living room with my grandparents and my mum and talking about, GCSE options, A levels, what I was going to do next, school, and, the topic of law potentially as a future career came up. I thought, oh, that sounds quite interesting. Maybe I'll look into it. And then the following year, I had the option to do work experience through school and did that at my local magistrates court. And I think that just ignited a passion in me for that, helping people and guiding them, but in perhaps a different way to teaching on its own. So that's where it all started, really, for me.
And so your work experience, was that a typical sort of 3 weeks work experience in the magistrates court, was it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I sat in the back office, I got to sit in court, observe lots of different cases in the magistrates court, and it just opened up a whole new world to me about, the things that happen to people in day-to-day life. I watched some really interesting cases and just got this view of, oh, okay, actually, maybe I can see myself fitting into this world in the future. And it was great. From there, I went on to ask for work experience at local firms. I went and did some archiving for a summer before sort of then doing my A-level in law to check that I liked the study side of it, and then going on to study law at Bournemouth University.
Okay, so that's still relatively young age at 14 to know that that's the career that you want to take. It sounds as if it was fairly straightforward, but there must have been some challenges along the way. What sort of challenges did you face?
Definitely. I think one of the first things I realised when I decided that perhaps law was the path for me was, as much as I, was a good student, I could learn the academic side of it. Law to me was very much not just what you knew, it was who you knew. And breaking into an area where, my parents weren't in anything like the legal profession, I didn't know anybody in the legal profession, I realised early on that I would need to build those connections with people and to get that work experience. And it became, who I knew as well as what I knew. And I think that's something that I've carried with me on my path to where I am now, very much so, because that challenge of going, well, actually, I don't know anyone. What's this going to look like? What's this career going to actually be? So I think the first thing was building those connections, and that's something I've kind of done over time, both for myself and then hopefully for those that have come on behind me. So that was probably the first sort of hurdle, so to speak, of coming into the legal profession.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? It's to have those connections for various reasons. Obviously, to kind of gain business, but also for mentorship, coaching, and both ways really, so that you can support others and they can support you. And I think a lot of people coming into law don't initially realize how important those connections are, and sometimes even just to see how things that you think, well, actually, I wouldn't do it that way, and that's so you kind of learn from other people's mistakes as well, don't you? In that way, by having that network.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you learn so much through osmosis within law, whether that is the colleagues that you work with or the people that you surround yourself with, particularly in those early days. And you mentioned mentorship there, and that is something that I'm really passionate about because for me, it was looking to find those mentors. I mean, at university, when I was studying, we had a mentor program. We had PAL
Mhm.
leaders in the year above us who would then sort of mentor us through our next year. I have been a mentor at the university for a couple of years now since I finished studying there. Finding those people that can help you climb that ladder and help guide you in your own process is so important. And I think it's so often overlooked, along with a lot of the soft skills that are required for law. But actually, I think for career longevity, having those people around you from an early stage can make a massive difference.
Yeah, those soft skills are really important, aren't they? It's a little bit like, kind of doctor and their bedside manner sort of thing. It can kind of really kind of make or break you in many ways with regards to your clients and also people you're working. Don't want to say against, because it should also should all be kind of looking to get to a kind of common goal, shouldn't it? So what was it that drew towards family law? What made you decide on that
Yeah.
aspect?
So my placement year, I did at a criminal firm back in Bristol, where I'm from. And I think having done my work experience in the magistrate's court, I kind of had this very pigeonholed idea that that's what I was going to do. I was going to be a
Mhm.
criminal solicitor, I was going to help people in those situations, and that was the route I was taking. But I did my placement year in 2013 when LASMO
Mhm.
came into effect, and that obviously turned legal aid on its head. And I saw the impact of that in a criminal defence firm, and suddenly that real life moment of actually, is going into criminal defence now going to be a sustainable career path moving forwards. But it gave me that hands-on experience of working with people. So it was at that moment I knew that I needed an area of law that was working day to day with clients in person, on the
Mhm.
telephone, rather than just the sort of contractual paperwork side of things. So from having done criminal, I then took a keen interest in family, and there's a lot of interplay between those two areas. So for me to be able to then look at it and go, okay, that's another area that I've got interest in. When I came back to university after completing my placement year, I sought work experience in local firms, again, different sort of levels, different things. Tried not to pigeonhole myself, as I think I'd almost done at the beginning, and took experience in things personal injury. I actually went to a local job agency and said, look, I'm a student at the university, send me to any law firm on the South Coast. I don't mind whether I'm making tea and coffee, sweeping floors. I just want to get to know a bit more about what's out there and what my options are. And from that, I garnered more and more work experience. And it sort of solidified over time that for me, family was the area that I needed to be in.
Mhm. That's great that you were prepared to just do anything just to kind of gain that experience. It's so important, isn't it? Just even if you're just in and around working in that environment and seeing what's happening, kind of, if you like, behind the scenes, seeing whether this is the sort of environment for you as a career. Can you see yourself working in this sort of environment, rather than just knowing the kind of theoretical side and the academic side of law, seeing the challenges, the day-to-day challenges that people face, but also the positive aspects of law, whereby, especially in family, obviously there can be some really, really, I imagine, positive times. What particular wins are you most proud of? I say wins, I don't want to necessarily call them wins, because it's a sensitive area of law, isn't it, family? But successes, should we say, from your personal perspective, whereby you've had a particularly good outcome for one of your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so often, our involvement isn't expected, it isn't wanted. People never want to use a family solicitor, but
Mm.
to be able to be there with that client and guide them through those legal complexities at one of the most difficult stages of their life potentially is a real privilege. And unlike other areas of law, it's not, we don't get to see clients throughout the rest of their lives. It's not, we're a short chapter in their storybook. And
Mm.
actually, for me, I think some of the biggest wins have been those clients that I've got good outcomes for, and then we never hear from them again. And particularly recently, I've had 3 or 4 clients reach out sort of quite a few years down the line and say, I just wanted to touch base and tell you where I am now, and that I am seeing my children regularly, that I've got remarried, I'm in a really positive place. And actually, for me to know that actually those books or those stories have gone on to much happier places is an absolute joy. Because so often we're left to sort of think, okay, well, we've done our thing, clients have gone off, and just, you think of them often and you hope that, everything is good, but to actually have that feedback back that some of those clients have gone on and done great things. I mean, I've had clients who've gone on and used their difficult experiences through our time together, through whether that's divorce, separation, child arrangements, to actually rebuild themselves and to go on to careers that now help other people that have been in their situation. And for me, that's just wonderful to see how they've taken something that was so difficult and made something fresh and new out of that.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it, when you see somebody who's in obviously a challenging time, and sometimes they can feel kind of trapped in that environment where, for whatever reason it may well be, obviously, the various challenges around that, but then to come out the other side and to effectively rebuild their life, or maybe even take the challenges have taken them down a different path, is amazing. And to know that you've kind of had a hand in helping them achieve that must be really rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think similarly on my teaching side of things, I'm seeing my first sort of cohort come through and get their training contracts now from when I started lecturing a couple of years ago. And actually being able to be such a small but important part of people's journeys is huge. I mean, it is somewhat ironic, but one of my passions is people and community and bringing people together. And the fact that while a lot of what I do day to day is perhaps seen as taking people apart and separating people out, actually the fact that they can go on to rebuild and build further upon that it's so rewarding for me.
Yeah, incredible. And so I think we may have already covered this, but what is it that you love about being in the position that you are in whether it be in lecturing or whether it be in your solicitor work? What is it that you really feel passionate about?
I think at the heart of it is people and helping people, and looking at it wider than that. I think it's very much this idea that we are constantly learning. As solicitors, we don't have all the answers. I think we could, have been solicitors for 50 years and still not know everything. So that constant learning through the academic side of things and keeping up with case law, but being able to apply that to clients who, while on the face of it, may be in a similar position to someone else, the fact that every case is different, every single day in my job is different. I never do the same two things, one day after the other. So for me, it's that constant learning curve for me as a solicitor, and being able to guide people along that.
And I suppose this is very prevalent also in the kind of role that you have. But I imagine you must take this advice regularly. But with the experience that you have, what advice can you give to people who are in those early stages of their careers, or maybe even just a bit of a crossroads, really, as to kind of maybe having second thoughts as to whether this is right for them and whether they're maybe considering a different career journey? What would you say to them to help them overcome those challenges?
Absolutely. So I think the first thing would be to seek that mentorship. So whether it is you're just coming into the profession, surround yourself with people that are in the profession, get an idea of what it's really like, do that work experience, pop in, talk to people. Lots of us within the legal profession are very open and willing to chat and have conversations, and it's something that I do, really regularly. So I think seeking that mentorship is great. Again, if you're looking for a change of area, whether that's a change of law or a change of career altogether, it's taking that time to look at those people around you and who you can, I suppose, utilize, connect with, to be able to sort of consider your options and look at next steps. And I suppose moving on from that mentorship is that building your tribe. I am the solicitor I am today because of the people around me. Some of those will be mentors that I've had over the years. Some of those will be the lecturers I had at university. But actually, I have some brilliant friends who are also family solicitors and solicitors in other areas. And actually having those connections with other lawyers and being able to work well with them, whether they're on the other side or not, just it makes a huge difference in your day-to-day job. I work in a very contentious area of law that has the I suppose opportunity to be quite difficult and to be dealing with that negative all of the time. But actually, there are wonderful other solicitors out there that I work with regularly, and knowing that I can give them a call, whether it's in the case of resolving a case or on a particularly thorny matter, makes all the difference.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear. I hear on quite a regular basis how many people are willing to, who are in your profession and are willing to share their experiences, willing to offer help and assistance where it's required. And it sounds as if it's really supportive in many, many areas of. And I suppose the key thing for maybe more junior people is just having that courage to kind of ask and not be afraid to feel, I should know this, because it is new. And sometimes even if you do necessarily, you maybe have covered it, sometimes these things slip your mind, don't they? And it's as long as you have that courage to ask and gain the experience of or the advice of somebody who is much more experienced, it's generally people are more than willing to help, aren't they?
Absolutely, and we learn so much from our peers. So when I was at university, I sat on the University Law Society, and then I joined the Bournemouth District Junior Lawyers Division. And then from that, having those connections through that and meeting other people, I then launched Dorset YRES, which is kind of the junior family law professionals in the area. And for me, it's about, I think having the courage to step through the door that first day of that committee meeting and go, okay, I may not know anybody or know anything, but the connections that I've built over the years have been fantastic. And if people can find those resources, use them, utilize them, that's what they're there for. And sometimes it's not completely obvious where these people are going to come from. You have to go out and seek it. And I think sometimes asking the right questions and speaking to the right people, you can find that support.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice. Appreciate that, Rosie. So if someone would like to get in contact with you, whether it be to use your services or whether it be just to reach out to you to network with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So feel free to add me on LinkedIn, drop me a message on there, or give me an email at rosie.beavan@battbroadbent.co.uk.
Excellent. Well, Rosie, it's been great speaking to you. Thanks very much for your sharing your experiences, but also the great advice. I think it's great to hear somebody obviously who's in that position where you are, effectively training, teaching, coaching, mentoring more junior or the next generation, if you like, of lawyers directly. And so it's good that you can kind of share that advice with others as well. But thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.